In this lesson, we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at the fill series, the fill handle and lists, and we're also going to look at cell referencing. A fill series is where you can copy down, copy up, copy from left to right, copy from right to left, from one cell to the next, where each adjacent cell inherits a formula or a series from the previous cell. The best way to describe this is by example. I have a simple table where basic salary and commission is recorded, and we are calculating total earnings. The calculation is straightforward. It's adding basic salary, which is in column B, with commission, which is in column C. So this formula that I've highlighted is just adding the contents of cell B2 to C2 and returning a value in D2. Now, rather than having to repeat that formula in the cells below, if I click on the formula that contains the cell that contains the formula, I can use the fill handle. Now, if you look at the way the cell is highlighted in blue, it's not a perfect rectangle. At the bottom right hand corner there's a square, and if I hover the mouse pointer over the square, the mouse pointer changes from an arrow to a plain cross on a north, south, east, west axis. When it hovers over like that, it means that the fill handle is available. So to activate the fill handle, I hold down the left clicker and I drag down, and I'm just going to let go once I've dragged down one cell. And you can see automatically that the cell D3 automatically has a result in it. And the result of that is a formula which I didn't type in, but the formula is there all the same. It's equals B3 plus C3. And this formula has inherited the formula from the cell just above it, where in the cell just above it, if we click into it, we can see that the formula is equals B2 plus C2. So the fill handle has copied down not the formula and the other characteristics of the cell into the cell below it. The other useful thing about the fill handle is that if I double click the fill handle, it'll fill the whole series. And there we have it. So now we have total earnings calculated on all adjacent cells. The next thing I want to look at is autofill. Google Sheets can predict the kind of series we want. So if I type in if I type in a date 1/1/2014 and I fill down 1, it automatically increments the date by 1 day. Fill down, increments by another day, and so on. So that's a natural series that's built into Google Sheets functionality. But we can actually force the series ourselves. Let's say, for example, I want to increment the date every 3 days. I've put the first date in here and now the second date. If I highlight the two cells and fill down, Google Spreadsheets knows to increment the day by 3 days each time in the series. Similarly, it doesn't just have to be with dates. You can do it with ordinary numerals. So I have these numbers here incrementing by a factor of 4, and I can fill the series, continue the series onwards, and it continues to increase by a factor of 4 each time. And it can be of any factor that you choose. Similarly, if I put in and fill down, Google Sheets will increment the series. I may not want Google Sheets to increase this by 1 day. I might want to just copy down the same date or the same entry in subsequent cells. If I highlight the subsequent cells, I can press Control and D on the keyboard and it'll copy the exact, it'll make a copy of the cell exactly down as far as I've dictated. And it doesn't just have to be downwards, it can be to the right as well. But it is a different keystroke this time, so I want to copy to the right, so it's Control and R. And there we have it. There are some built-in lists within Google Sheets. So if I type in MUN, and fill down or fill across, I get the days of the week. Similarly, if I do Monday and fill down, I get the days of the week also. But also if I continue the series, it just repeats the days of the week. By the same token, if I type in Jan, or January, the next thing I wanted to look at was cell referencing. We would have seen from a previous example that we used that Google Sheets uses a default referencing style called relative referencing. This is best explained with an example. Here we have an example where we are calculating the full price for some products based on adding the net price and the sales tax to give us the checkout price. So once again, within the cell, we have a very simple formula, B2 plus C2. We've seen from our previous example too, in the next cell, the formula is B3 plus C3. In the following cell, it's B4 plus C4. And in the next cell, it's B5 plus C5. So as I've used the fill handle going down, the relative reference of the cells has increased by 1 per row as I go down. That is called relative cell referencing. Here's an almost identical example. Here we have net price and sales tax and products and the checkout price. But in this instance we have a standard rate of sales tax of 12%. Now we could put on 12% in each row of column C as necessary. But seeing as the tax is common to all products, it's handier in this example just to enter the sales tax once. So we have to come up with a method that will allow us to, for the relative position of the net price in column B, to increase as we fill down, but keep the reference to the sales tax in cell C2 absolute. So we do that in a relatively straightforward manner. The formula is almost identical, except in this instance, the reference to C2 has got a $sign in front of the C and a $sign in front of the 2. When you have a $sign in front of the column and or row reference, that tells Google Sheets whatever happens, wherever this formula is copied, do not move that cell reference. So the $sign in front of the C means wherever the formula is copied, do not change the reference to column C. And the $sign in front of the 2 says no matter where this gets copied, do not update the reference to row 2. So if we use a fill handle to copy this down, Again, the formula is update, and let's have a look. So the original formula is equals B2 plus open bracket B2 multiplied by $C, $2, close bracket. In the next one, the reference to cell B2 has updated to B3, but the reference to cell C2 has remained fixed. Similarly, down a further line, cell B4 has updated, but the reference to cell C2 has remained the same. That's what absolute cell referencing is. Now, just one last point on absolute cell referencing. If you click on a cell and you press function F4, it will automatically put the dollar signs in for you. So C2 has no absolute cell referencing. I've clicked F4 once and it's put the absolute cell referencing beside the column and beside the row. If I press F4 again, the dollar sign is just fixed against row 2. So that means the column will update, but the row will remain fixed. If I press F4 again, the dollar sign is now adjacent to this column reference. So that means the column reference will remain fixed, but the row reference can update or will remain relative. Click on it again and the absolute cell referencing has been removed completely. I'll press F4 once more and we're back to absolute cell referencing again. The last thing I wanted to look at was named ranges. Named ranges have several advantages and uses within Google Sheets. I'm going to look at a very simple usage of it here. Here we have a table adding up quarterly results. So we've got the quarterly results for each of the regions and then the total, which is just a very basic sum function. Sum open brackets B2 colon B5, which just means add up everything in cells B2 to B5 inclusive. And it returns 9,500. We can do the same thing for the quarterly 2 results, or we can try something slightly different with a named range. So how do you set up a named range? Well, first of all, you select the cells that you want to name. So when you select 2 or more cells, that is a range, and we want to give this range of cell C data, named and protected ranges. And over on the right hand margin I have this box where I can give my named range a name. So I'm going to give it a name of Q2 sales and click on the button done. And it's that simple. I have now given these cells a name of Q2 sales. I'm going to close this box here, I don't need it any longer. And if I type in a formula equals sum, open bracket, Q2 sales, close bracket, I'll press return, and it adds up these sales figures. So the named range is a handy way of making your formula more readable.